Hi, curious people. Thank you for being here. Imagine that you are sitting in the kitchen and a robot is also there. Now, it looks around the kitchen through its camera sensors. So it detects you looking, let's say, anxious and tired. Now, he may look some of the tea bags and kettle in the kitchen. So it send that image to the Claude or ChatGPT and it give a response to the robot that the person looks anxious and tired and he may like a cup of tea. So here are the instructions for making that cup of tea. Let's act upon it and make him a cup of tea. So the robot will execute that instruction and will give you a cup of tea. But remember here that it isn't only for making cup of tea, but for all the other physical actions in the world. And most importantly, not for you, but for all the peoples, like for millions of people that are using the, let's say, Claude or ChatGPT APIs, that will have the robots that to that APIs now robots will have access. For about 16 years, the robots like the Webet 1 in 1973 and the Boston Dynamics were completely dumped. And that the reason wasn't because the engineers were so bad, but because of the structure problems. These old robots were only acts upon the pre-programmed instructions. Now, if there is something little missing in the instructions, the whole task will be messed up. And that was the reason the robots were only limited to the factories beyond the human access.
Because the real world is messy, unpredictable, and full of vague instructions. Now, in robotics, this was a rigid war for decades. And finally, something happened that completely changed everything. In 2024, a humanoid robot stood at the table with an apple, some dishes, and drawing racks. A person asked the robot, "Can I have something for eating?" And the robot looked at the table and he called the figure one and reasoned that the apple is only item for eating there, so it's take over that for the human. Now here there is no human telling the robot that this is the apple, and there is no good instructions telling the robot that apple is a food. But this robot was powered by a large vision model trained by the OpenAI. This, according to the Accenture report, was one of the major demonstrations in the seismic shift. The moment artificial intelligence, the machine intelligence, will moving toward the real life actions. Now here the robot and robot body and robot brain are completely different, separate from one another. The robot body is, of course, the motors, actuators, and the brain of the robot is that foundational models which can we access through the APIs. Now it means that we can manipulate the brain of these robots without touching the body of the robot, which is a fun thing. And we can access millions of robots to that brain simultaneously. Now here is the intriguing question arises in my mind. What if we take all the APIs from millions of people using these LLMs like the ChatGPT or Claude and give the APIs access to the robots, to these servers instead of the humans, so they can act upon in real life on these instructions? Is that will works? Well, this idea is profoundly correct by its intuition. Like when we ask a question from any LLM, it show a response on the screen. We just read it and get any advice or something like that from the text. Now there is no physical consequence involved here, but in case of robot, The text isn't showing on the screen. The robot can act upon these instructions in real life, so it works intuitively. Now this is a two-layer system. At the top is cognitive digital brain, and at the bottom is the physical actuators. Now any LLM sits at the top layer of the cognitive brain, while the robots sits at the bottom physical layer. Now here some challenges are involved, like the challenge of latency. All the LLMs takes time to process the data, like a single image. Now some real-time actions we need to happen really fast, like in millisecond. Let's say the self-driving car and like the surgery. Similarly, the second challenge is a physical training data. The robot data is really scarce, expensive, and hard to standardize. The third and most important problem is of trust. The Accenture's report showed that the 77% of the executives in the world believe that the real benefit of AI in the real world can be unlocked only if based on the foundation of trust. Even though with these challenges, I think this technology is not too far. And then think about this alien world, like how will it looks like?